All right. Okay, perfect. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. You're all welcome to join us today to join the virtual parallel forum of the 68th Annual Commission on the Status of Women under the theme of accelerating achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. So, I'm Dr. Joseph Olivier Mendu, and I'll be moderating this parallel session today. So the world is at the crucial crossroads for gender equality. We do know that globally, 10.3% of women live in extreme poverty today, and they are poorer than men. Progress towards ending poverty needs to be 26 times faster to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And today, we're very fortunate to have several guests who will share with us their thoughts on the priority theme, accelerating the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls by addressing poverty and strengthening institutions and financing with gender perspective. So before we get into specific, I would like to invite us, the audience, to watch an introduction video of the Change Your Education Foundation. So please, let's watch the video. So we're still waiting for the IT teams. So yeah, please, once again, let's watch the video.
A child is a family. These children are going to grow up into future mothers and fathers. As for this matter, if we do it, we may not see the results immediately. If we don't do it, however, we will see the consequences soon. To protect our own children, we must protect all children. Miss Zhang Yinjin, an ordinary mother, has stuck to these words for 18 years. In 2006, she resolutely resigned from public office and founded the AIDS Prevention and Education Project for Chinese youth. In 2014, she established the Beijing Change Your Education Foundation. After years of efforts, the Beijing Change Your Education Foundation has been closely integrated with government sectors of education, healthcare, civil affairs, youth league committees, women's federations, and public security all over the country. By building Change Your huts in schools and communities, more than 1,000 schools in 29 provinces and cities nationwide have promoted the AIDS Prevention and Education Project for Chinese youth. And love education for young people has been comprehensively carried out. More than 22,000 teachers have been trained. More than 35,000 children and young people in distress have been subsidized. And more than 30 million students, teachers, and parents have been directly benefited. Nowadays, Change Your huts have become the integrated platforms for carrying out multiple social tasks, such as drug control and AIDS prevention, mental health, sexual health, charity, and traditional culture. Love is the soul of education. Without love, there is no education. As a mother and a woman, she has been braving the wind and rain and blazing her way forward through all the difficulties for nearly 20 years because of her love. Her journey has been an arduous but great one. In the exploration and practice of the system of love education mode for the youth, Change Your has been praised by all sectors of society. and instructed by national leaders. Michelle Sidby, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Director of the UNAIDS, praised Changier for it has done the most difficult job, whose experiences and practices deserve to be promoted worldwide. In 2019, Changier won and received the Special Consultative status of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. In 2022, Changier won a 5A level NGO rating. The Love Education Campus Tour project, carried out by Changier, won the China Charity Award. Everything is interconnected with each other. Distant places and countless people are related to you and me. Protecting children means protecting the future of society.
大家好，我是亲爱工程形象大使康辉。
大家好，我是亲爱工程妨碍大使朱旭。
我是亲爱工程爱心大使万茜。
我是郑恺。
大家好，我是张静初。
我是梅婷。
我是李甘雅。
大家好，我是王琦。
亲爱小屋，爱的教育。
万间小屋，万方福田。
It is better for everyone to donate 1 yuan than for one person to donate 100 million yuan. A little spark kindles a great fire. We believe that all small efforts will eventually converge into a torrent of great goodness. Guard every child's smile. Guard the innocence of every child. Guard all our children.
Thank you very much for your attention. Without further ado, let us welcome our first speaker today, and that will be Ms. Susan Kendall. She's a gender consultant and currently based in Egypt. She just finished working with UNICEF reviewing the global gender guidance for water, sanitation, and hygiene. And she previously worked with UNICEF in Kenya and in the UK government for Girls Education Challenge, working on girls empowerment programs across South Asia and Eastern Africa. So Ms. Susan, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be here today as we discuss a topic of immense importance, accelerating the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. Many international commitments support women's economic empowerment, including the Beijing Platform for Action, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and a series of International Labour Organization conventions on gender equality. And with the growing body of evidence that shows that gender equality significantly contributes to advancing economies and sustainable development, now is the time to invest. Gender inequality is a universal issue that knows no boundaries. It takes shape in various forms, from unequal access to education and employment opportunities to limited participation in decision-making processes. Across the globe, women and girls encounter barriers that hinder their full participation and advancement in society. My presentation sets out the continuing challenges of gender inequality, which is particularly pronounced amongst lower socioeconomic communities, and sets out 4 areas for reform: gender-responsive policies, women and girls' participation, education, and multi-sectoral partnerships. Poverty further exacerbates gender inequality, impacting women and girls disproportionately. They often find themselves at the forefront of economic hardship, lacking access to basic necessities and facing limited opportunities for socio-economic mobility. Addressing poverty is therefore crucial for achieving gender equality, as economic empowerment is a foundation of women's empowerment. But addressing poverty by itself isn't sufficient. A gender and intersectional lens is required through anti-poverty efforts to ensure all women and men benefit. Women and girls' poverty rates shift across the life course. At higher poverty thresholds, adolescent girls often fare worse than adolescent boys. Contributing factors include high fertility rates, single motherhood, and early age of marriage. Women aged 25 to 34 are 1.2 times more likely to live in extreme poverty than men, owing to their predominant role in providing care. The gender gap continues into older age. In 2023, 8% of women aged 55 to 59 were living in extreme poverty compared to 6.9% of men. The higher likelihood of career interruptions, part-time employment, lower earnings, concentration in the informal sector, and more time spent on unpaid care work accrues over time. resulting in older women having fewer assets, savings, and social protection benefits. Care work sustains economies and societies, but is commonly undervalued and unrecognised. Women, on average, spend 2.8 hours per day more than men performing unpaid care and domestic work. The predominant role of women in unpaid care is a key contributing factor to their greater propensity to poverty. As women and girls contend with the impact of climate change and other crises, they are often forced to move or migrate within and beyond their countries of origin. It is estimated that women and girls comprise half of internally displaced or stateless persons worldwide. Women and girls living in humanitarian and fragile contexts face acute poverty, increased risk of violence, and limited prospects for education and employment. Women and girls in fragile countries and areas are 7.7 times more likely to live in extreme poverty or on less than $2.15 a day. These insights illustrate that to accelerate progress towards gender equality, we must adopt multifaceted strategies that address the root causes of inequality. This includes implementing gender-responsive policies, promoting women's leadership and participation, investing in women's education and skills development, and fostering partnerships across sectors. So, institutions play a vital role in either perpetuating or challenging gender inequalities. By implementing policies and practices that promote gender equality, institutions can create an environment conducive to women's empowerment. Strengthening institutions involves reforming laws, policies, and practices to ensure they're inclusive and responsive to gender dynamics. For example, Pakistan's Ministry of Finance publishes all budget-related documents in both Urdu and English on its website and includes budgetary allocations for gender equality. Financial resources are essential for advancing gender equality initiatives. Gender-responsive financing involves allocating resources in a manner that prioritizes the needs and priorities of women and girls. This includes investing in education, healthcare, entrepreneurship, and social protection programs that promote gender equality outcomes. So gender-responsive policymaking requires data and evidence on how different interventions impact women and men differently. I recently wrote a case study highlighting the efforts of UNICEF's Accelerated Sanitation and Water for All programme in Nigeria, aimed at empowering women-headed households through innovative sanitation financing. In a region facing significant WASH challenges and gender disparities, the programme aimed to boost women's participation and leadership in WASH decision-making processes. Key strategies included ensuring female representation in community WASH committees and targeting women for sanitation financing, which led to increased toilet construction, improved loan repayments, and other benefits such as gender mainstreaming in WASH policies. As women's involvement grew, they also extended their impact beyond WASH to areas like immunisation, nutrition, and maternal health. Ultimately, engaging women in WASH initiatives has proven transformative, enhancing sanitation access and sustainability of WASH systems in the region. So women's participation in developing services leads to improved services for all. Next, I want to talk a bit about education and skills development. One example of this is gender-responsive education sector planning, so GRESP, is a tool for embedding gender equality into a country's education sector plan. GRESP guides ministries of education and partners to identify gender barriers within education systems and put strategies and policies in place to address them in the classroom, teachers' education and practice, curriculum and material development, and leadership and administration. A key part of gender-responsive education sector planning is implementing gender-responsive budgeting to drive resources to those interventions that support women and girls' education and gender equality. In Uganda, the national government has strived to identify gender-orientated goals using the budgeting process to address these goals for the education sector. This has been implemented for over a decade and has led to increased participation and retention of girls in school. Gender budgets have led to strengthened gender unit within the Ministry of Education, investment on teachers' skills to address gender stereotypes in classrooms and reduce violence in schools and improve gender disaggregated data. And fostering partnerships between private sector organisations and women's rights organisations to collectively address the systematic barriers hindering women can offer local solutions and bring about immense influence to help move the needle. In Kenya, women make up the majority of the workforce in the floricultural, so working amongst flowers, sector. While lots of progress has been made in recent years to improve women's rights in the sector, women's workers are still facing a wide range of challenges that impede their economic empowerment and resilience. Women's rights organisations have long been advocating for improvements in the sector, but largely been working against the companies. Flower companies, in turn, have become wary of working with women's rights organisations. These relationships need to be bettered to benefit all parties involved. Through an organisation called Win-Win Strategies, the two stakeholders came together to build positive collaborative partnerships to design solutions that benefit both the women workers as well as the business. These included creating workers' rights resources that account for women's low levels of literacy, designing and implementing menstrual health management policies, and organising leadership training for women in different levels of the company. Understanding the interconnectedness of poverty, institutions, and financing is crucial. Addressing one aspect without considering the others might limit results. A comprehensive approach that tackles poverty, strengthens institutions, and allocates resources strategically is essential for accelerating progress towards gender equality. So while progress has been made, significant challenges persist. Entrenched gender norms, inadequate funding, insufficient political will, and systematic barriers within institutions continues to impede progress towards gender equality. Achieving gender equality and women's empowerment requires concerted efforts from all stakeholders. By addressing poverty, strengthening institutions, and financing with a gender perspective, we can create a more equitable, inclusive world for future generations. For growth to be gender equitable, it must ensure decent work for both women and men, giving priority to women living in poverty. Training and opportunities for women to enter middle and high-skilled occupations are also required. But the value of the contributions of women in occupations such as care work also need to be reassessed with a view to increasing wages and improving conditions. These measures are particularly important for women living in poverty. So embedding gender equality in public budgeting is a major area that needs further development. This would involve governments making commitments to generate analysis on how budgets impact different members of society and support and implement the outcomes of a participative, gender-responsive budgeting process. It would involving a wide range of stakeholders, including marginalised women, into the budget prioritisation process. It would involve generating evidence and data on the differential impact of public expenditure on women and men, and it would involve making allocations that address gender equality directly. Gender-responsive budgeting is an essential policy tool to promote gender equality, empower women, improve policy effectiveness, enhance accountability and transparency, and advance national development goals. Ultimately, it is a critical tool for building more inclusive and equitable societies. So I urge each of you to commit in advancing gender equality in your respective spheres of influence, whether you're a policymaker, a business leader, a civil society activist, or an individual citizen, your actions matter. If we work together, we can make sure every woman and girls realise their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your valuable insights. So next on the schedule, we'll also like to invite Dr. Tian Yuan. He's actually an associate professor in pediatric at Harvard Medical School. He's co-director of the MGH Food Allergy Center and senior clinicians in the Division of the Pediatric Gastroenterology and Nutrition. Dr. Yuan was appointed the inaugural incumbent of the Damaris Lloyd Jr. Endowed Chair in Food Allergies in May 2023. Dr. Yuan is an active primary care pediatrician of about 2,000 children in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. And he's also dedicated to advocating for his patients through collaboration with other physicians and scientists in pediatric allergy and immunology, child psychology, also nutrition and feeding and swallowing. And Dr. Yuan is passionate for the health and mothers and infants, and his research interests include early childhood health and diseases that affect the gastrointestinal tracts and children. So we have Dr. Tian Yuan on video. So please, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to be here to share our views about women's and children's health. Women and infant health is one of the major health issues worldwide. As a practicing pediatrician and pediatric gastroenterologist in Boston, Massachusetts, United States, over the past 2 decades, I have witnessed a disparity and inequality of healthcare delivery within the United States, particularly for the low-income African American and Hispanic families. This is also true for other developed countries. Globally, according to the editorial by Dr. Carneiro from Brazil, published in the Journal of Women and Health in 2024, currently, women represent nearly 50% of the world population, according to the United Nations. But their health need remain neglected. Efforts to care for almost 4 billion women are enormous. And in 2021, the World Health Organization, WHO, defined 6 priorities for female health in an attempt to overcome the several challenges women and girls face to proper health care. According to the WHO, although important progresses have been made in the past 2 decades, about 287,000 women die during and following pregnancy and childbirth in 2020. This number is unacceptably high. According to the UNICEF, every day, some 6,400 babies die in the first month of life. In 2021, an estimated 2.3 million newborns die worldwide. The most common direct causes of maternal injury and death are excessive blood loss, infection, high blood pressure, unsafe abortion, and obstructed labor, as well as indirect causes such as anemia, malaria, and heart disease. Most maternal deaths are preventable, and timely management by a skilled healthcare professional working in a supportive environment. Ending preventable maternal death must remain at the top of the global agenda. At the same time, simply surviving pregnancy and childbirth can never be the marker of successful maternal health care. It is critical to expand efforts reducing maternal injury and disability to promote health and well-being of women. Maternal infection during pregnancy, not only a major risk factor which threatens maternal health, but also a significant risk factor for the well-being of a developing fetus. It can lead to premature birth and birth defect, and impose a negative impact on the fetus brain development. It has been demonstrated in research studies of animal models that exposure to heightened inflammation in pregnancy caused by infections or other inflammatory insults has been associated with the onset of neurodevelopmental and psychiatric disorders in children. The concept of maternal immune activation, MIA, has been developed and recognized as a major risk factor for autism-like behavior in children. As a step forward, WHO Guideline Development Group, GDG, met on December 5th to 6th, 2023, for intrapartum antibiotic prophylaxis for the prevention of early onset Group B streptococcal disease in newborns. This practice has been the routine prenatal care for decades in the developed world. Practically, we need a better screening, treatment, and prevention for maternal infections during pregnancy, such as detection of common infections of influenza, CMV, HSV, HPV, and HIV. Efficient delivery of available vaccines to pregnant women, and effective treatment to improve the maternal health. and at the same time to improve the infants' physical health and mental health. Under the Harvard Medical School Plavnik Institute of Global Health and Social Medicine, there are 9 active programs, including infectious disease, economics, family care for elderly, medical education, maternal health, non-communicable disease, palliative care, primary care, public health policy, and surgery. Within the infectious disease and the public health programs, there is a worldwide partnership across the globe in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and the Caribbean. We harness the resources within the Harvard institutions and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, to form an effective collaboration, and we are well positioned to share our knowledge, resource, manpower, and technology globally to improve the health of women and children. At the Massachusetts General Hospital, MGH, one of the major teaching hospitals at the Harvard Medical School, I am part of the medical research team. Our work is focusing on the following 2 aspects. First, accurate diagnosis, effective treatment, and efficient prevention of maternal infections during pregnancy to improve the maternal health and quality of life. Second, detection and treatment of infant infection and inflammation, and the management of infants and children's neurodevelopmental defect with early detection and intervention in high-risk populations in order to improve the children's health and their quality of life. We are hoping to establish a global coalition between MGH, Harvard Medical School, and other countries and institutions to work together to improve both women and infant health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Yuan, for your very valuable insight. And yeah, so we are very grateful for that. Next on the schedule, we would also like to invite another distinguished guests to the floor in the name of Oliver Sin. Oliver Sin is a junior at Milton Academy in the US. And Oliver is a passionate, curious, and insightful student who loves humanities. And he enjoys English literature, especially reading and writing poetry. In addition, he has a keen interest in government, namely international relations and intergovernmental structures. He's concurrently working under one of the Massachusetts House of Representatives as an intern, primarily investigating how different governmental structures can best cooperate. He's looking forward to furthering his exploration of literature and political science. So Oliver Sin, I would like to also give you the floor. Please.
Thank you very much. In the words of George Washington Carver, education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. I am so honored to be able to stand before all of you today to discuss a subject close to my heart and critical to our collective progress: the irreplaceable value of literacy, especially for women, and the steps we must take to improve and expand it globally. When I was little, for as long as I can remember, I would always end the day by going to my parents' room, where my mother would read me a bedtime story. These stories transported me to exotic far-off lands, from the glittering sands of 1001 Nights to the enchanted forests of A Midsummer's Night Dream, to ancient China during the Three Kingdoms period. These stories helped me develop my imagination and appreciation for stories, and most of all, my passion for writing. Without my mother's stories, I doubt I would have been able to cultivate the same sense for reading and writing I have today. I probably would have never discovered my love for poetry, and I definitely wouldn't even entertain the thought of pursuing writing in college. Everyone knows how important education is for women. Literacy is not just the ability to read and write, it's the cornerstone of empowerment and a stepping stone towards independence. For women, literacy is doubly significant. Historically, women have been marginalized from the educational sphere, which has profound implications not only for women themselves, but also for the development of societies at large. Yet, even today, women are often forbidden from receiving even the most basic of educations. According to the United Nations, as of 2023, only 11% of women in some African and Indian communities have received sufficient education to be considered literate. The first theme for CSW68 is priority, accelerating the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls by addressing poverty and strengthening institutions and financing with a gender perspective. However, when these institutions are resistant to the education of women to begin with, what actions can we take? Well, we can encourage homeschooling and self-teaching as much as possible. As Anne Ritchie famously wrote, if you give a hungry man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. If there are no schools available for women, we must create schools inside the home. Literacy is so crucial for women because it is the key to unlocking all other forms of education. Once a woman can read, she gains access to the vast ocean of human knowledge and wisdom. She can teach herself anything from mathematics to medicine, from history to human rights. This self-education is especially vital for those who, due to economic or social barriers, cannot attend school regularly, if at all. She can also educate others, be it her daughter, her son, or just other women who also wish to learn. After all, literacy for women isn't just about reading and writing. It's about opening doors to opportunities that are previously locked. It's about giving women the tools they need to build a better life for themselves, their families, and their communities. If we turn our gaze to the status quo, we find a world of contrasts. In first world countries, literacy rates are high and education is widely accessible. However, even in wealthy countries like the United States, disparities exist, often along the lines of gender, race, and socioeconomic status. But the gap widens alarmingly when we look toward developing countries. Here, literacy rates, especially among women, lag dramatically. The reasons are multiple and they range from sociocultural barriers to a lack of infrastructure and resources. This is where our attention, effort, and resources must be focused. So, what more can be done? Well, it begins at home with parents instilling the value of education and literacy in their children from an early age. But it doesn't end there. We need to boost literacy rates through comprehensive strategies that include 1, creating sustainable and versatile infrastructure. We need to create schools that are accessible for everyone with resources that cater to the needs of the community, including adult literacy programs. An example of these programs is the Maternal Love College initiative established by the Change Your Education Foundation. 2, we have to make literature and educational materials as accessible as possible. Libraries, mobile libraries, and digital resources can bridge the gap in places where traditional education simply can't reach, and it makes education even more equitable and accessible. 3, we have to engage and empower the community. By educating communities about the importance of literacy, especially for women, we can inspire and mobilize them to support and participate in literacy boosting initiatives. Above all, international cooperation is crucial if we wish to see social protection systems, access to public services, and sustainable infrastructure for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls worldwide. Since the first cases of HIV were reported more than 35 years ago, 78 million people have become infected with HIV, and 35 million people have died from AIDS-related illnesses. Fortunately, just like how the world came together to eradicate smallpox, it will soon eradicate AIDS. AIDS is currently projected to be eradicated worldwide by 2030. This achievement can be attributed to the efforts of NGOs worldwide, including the Change Your Foundation, and the Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, which is arguably one of the most successful United Nations programs. Its success largely stems from the universal cooperation it enjoys during the fight to eradicate AIDS. If the push for women's literacy were to receive the same level of global support, we could be just a few years away from a future characterized by universal gender equality and a healthier global society. One of the NGOs I've mentioned is the Change Your Foundation, whose initiatives like the campaign of sex education and humanistic education to end AIDS have made significant strides in combating the AIDS epidemic. By aiming to popularize and promote knowledge of AIDS education, prevention, and treatment, the campaign addresses one of the most critical aspects of health education, breaking the stigma and information that surrounds HIV and AIDS, particularly in the domestic setting. The campaign's success underscores a significant precedent. Education in homes can and will continue to have far-reaching impacts on gender equality and societal progress, whether the subject be public health or English literature. I'd like to end with a quote from Lord Palmerston, two-time Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and known as one of the greatest foreign secretaries of all time. There are no permanent alliances, only permanent interests. Literacy, especially for women, is not just an educational goal. It's a fundamental human right that has the power to transform societies. It's in the best interest of every nation on earth to give women equal access to education. By improving literacy rates from the ground up, we are not just teaching individuals to read and write, we are opening up a world of possibilities for them and paving the way for a brighter and more equitable future for all. Let us devote ourselves to this noble cause, for only through the empowerment of women through literacy can we find the keys to unlock that golden door of freedom for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for such a very inspirational speech. And I'd like to remind you that we do have another youth representative in the name of Li Yan Sun. A bit of background about her. She's a junior at Hill School in Pennsylvania. Growing up in a sort of a multicultural Gen Z, she has found herself developing a profound interest in understanding how media shapes societal perspective and values across various communities. Moreover, Li Yan cares immensely for and advocates the rights of young women like herself. So, Li Yan-sun, this is your time.
Thank you, and welcome all. Last summer, I was given the opportunity to live in the city that never sleeps for a month, alone. Like many around me, my parents have always taught me to be careful when out, especially when alone at night as a girl. So although my trip was glamorous, in the back of my mind, whether I was turning a corner or waiting for the subway, the thought that I, as a 16-year-old girl alone, being the prime target to be snatched away, terrified me. However, in certain parts of the world, parents aren't teaching their children this common knowledge that's embedded in all our brains, and in fact, condone or even support such acts. Annually, 25 million people are human trafficked, 79% of which are sexual exploitation cases, primarily affecting women and most tragically children. The act of trafficking is incredibly complex. For one, what exactly is human trafficking? Many people think that it's simply slavery and human labor. But as a $150 million industry, these crimes encompass large spectrums with, of course, yes, modern slavery, but also overlooked acts that many wouldn't usually categorize as trafficking, such as the sale of child brides or organ trafficking. Victims also come from diverse backgrounds, with 2/3 located in Asia-Pacific regions and 1/5 in Africa, or in other words, more developing countries. So we can conclude that significant differences between the economic, political, and cultural differences take a large toll on the origin of this issue. For as long as humans have existed, there has been human trafficking of them. However, only in the 19th and 20th centuries were their actions taken. But despite its illegality in every nation, human trafficking remains a pervasive issue. As the second most profitable illegal industry, offenders are consistently trafficking and with little difficulty. Although it varies between each state and its circumstance, the reasoning falls behind three major points. Firstly, the nature of the industry ensures that there is always activity. There are constantly people who are demanding for people, whether it's cases of modern slavery, cheap labor, or commercial sex. Supply and demand is always high. So you might think, okay, if this is such an active business, there must be strict laws and rules in preventing these acts. And yes, while the UN themselves have done plenty, such as setting protocols for actions that individual states should take, or partnering with external organizations with more specific goals, it is vital to take note that all these efforts can only be effective if the governments of those individual states want it to be. Which leads to my second point. The solutions offered are incredibly limited and ineffective, not because that there isn't enough effort put in, but that the majority of these efforts are in the hopes that the governments themselves will receive aid and take responsibility. Unfortunately, the reality is that despite legislative measures at an all-time high, the prosecution of offenders remains disproportionately low. The reason to this remains undetermined on whether it's an issue with a lack of resources, uninformed about the issue, or that heads are simply being turned away. And lastly, surprisingly, the biggest contributor to the ease of human trafficking is the victims themselves. In many developing regions, people live in poverty and under corrupt ruling or amidst war, leading them to view being taken away from their homes as a definite improvement. Because of this, traffickers target these areas intentionally, particularly focusing on vulnerable women and girls who come from families of poverty and little power. Shocking to many, myself included, there exists markets that are specialized to sell young girls. This isn't done by just any stranger, but parents are willingly selling their underage daughters in today's age. The rationale behind this is a two birds, one stone situation. First, parents are able to receive another form of income. And second, they assure themselves and their little girls who are being trafficked that they will end up in a better place. As a result, the oblivious young girls prepare themselves to look prettier and healthier to be sold at a higher rate just to make their parents proud. But who knows what's really going to happen? In their minds, they're thinking of rainbows and unicorns, but in reality, they could end up picking cotton in scorching hot weather for the rest of their lives, or have unimaginable, inhumane things done to them. I want to make these little girls to realize that they should not resort to trafficking as a solution. I thrive to change this horrifying normalized view in their culture, starting with the very people who are being affected. I know that in certain circumstances, there is no other choice, and I'll probably never be able to understand such pain. But in many cases, the reality is that parents do take advantage of their children. Nonetheless, no matter what situation, these young girls need to open their eyes to the fact that they should not be born for the very purpose of paying their parents' debts, and understand the truth and what unimaginable states they may end up in. In the age of widespread communication and media, the best way to implement my goal would be through media platforms. According to The Guardian, there's a growing popularity on use of mobile technology with young people in developing countries, and many high-profile tech companies have funded projects to increase education through technology there as well. Although I'm still figuring out the intricacies of the distribution, I hope that by taking advantage of even only a limited amount of people in these areas, I want to utilize the detailed and effective algorithms to target the potential victims and people surrounding them with social media accounts that share the dangers they're putting themselves into. Specifically, they will present different anonymous stories told by first-hand experience of what happens after being trafficked by rescued victims who feel safe enough to speak up. While this demonstrates the dangers to potential victims, it also acts as a platform for victims to cope by sharing their experience. By doing this, I connect to the origin of our issue and inhibit the after effects. If the children or victims are more reluctant to be taken away, offenders will have a more difficult time to target them, slowly creating an imbalance in that perfect supply and demand. In unnormalizing this act, developing countries will create much more resistance from not only the victims themselves, but others will also realize how cruel this is, and governments may even be pushed to create real change. I'm not saying that I'll be able to rectify human trafficking as a whole. I can't force the governments to do anything, nor can I prosecute all offenders myself. But as a high school student, one that highly understands how social media can affect one's life, I'm able to create a sliver of change. But even so, this sliver and many others is what comes together to defeat the whole picture. Think about it like this. Even if only one of the girls at the market had known about this, she would have told the others. They could have all had a say against being taken away. They wouldn't be turned into slaves or sex workers. It's one step at a time that matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your insights. And without further ado, I would also like to invite one of our distinguished guests, and she's Darlene Morse. So a bit of a background about her. Miss Darlene Morse is the current leader of the member relations team at the Employees Association of the Northeast in the US. In her role, she plays a vital part in assisting businesses and organizations in enhancing their human resources and training functions. And with a wealth of experience in workforce development and leadership positions in nonprofit organizations, Darlene's career began in the print industries years ago at a reputable family-run business known for its exemplary treatment of both employees and customers. Furthermore, Darlene serves as a board member for the Community Education Project in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and she earned a bachelor in psychology from Westfield State and is actively engaged in volunteering for numerous global and local organizations, such as Girls Incorporated. Additionally, she has devoted significant time as a mentor with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and plays an active role in several local chambers of commerce. So thank you very much for being here. So please, Ms. Darlene Morse, you may take the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm Darlene Morse, as Minju said. I'm coming to you from Western Massachusetts today, and I'm a longtime supporter of workforce development for women and girls. And I'm very happy to be here today with all of the other guests. My background is in workforce development and human resources. And over again in my work, I have found that a key component to break down barriers of all kinds is to provide education and discussion. And an issue that is close to my heart related to advancing women and girls is the issue of career and job exposure. I was recently at a regional clean energy summit where the discussion at our table was the emerging technology and green career options available and how to get more people aware of these careers so they can be trained and connected to businesses who desperately need them. It's an exciting time with many emerging fields we've never had before, as well as many fields that are newly in demand. Electricians, electrical engineers, operations technicians, there are solar photovoltaic installers, and managers are all in demand and needed now and for the foreseeable future. Some of these may not be career paths that are addressed often in four-year institutions, but are in demand and provide a great sustainable pathway to occupations with high salary levels. I feel that exposure to these and other career options can be most effective at a younger age, at grammar school and middle school, not just at the high school level when choices may have already been made to set a course of action in motion. I do think kids start thinking about what they may want to do and be as they grow from a young age. What they're surrounded by is what they know. In the US and worldwide, we need to give school guidance counselors resources so they can bring a real experience into a young girl's orbit. Seeing what is possible as a potential career path, hearing firsthand from people who do the work and why they do it is a powerful thing. Schools can provide this exposure to different career options through guidance counselors, teachers, and field trips, but organizations such as Girls Inc. and Boys and Girls Clubs are also doing great work putting programs in place that do exactly this. In each state in the US, there are also local career centers that have youth programs as well. These engaging youth programs give needed support and encouragement while providing career exposure to girls and young women. Past participants have thrived because of this attention and gone on to be first-generation college graduates who make a difference in their communities. A young woman I know comes to mind who came into the youth program at the Career Center, led a team of youth as an on-site supervisor after being trained, and then went on to go to college and law school. She then ran for elected office in her community and is doing great work. Some of these career options never would have come into awareness for these young women, but for the work of the teachers and mentors at these programs. We need more of these programs. Looking at vocational options, as those needs are extremely high right now, shouldn't be overlooked, as there are many paths to happiness and success. Exposure is so important, but also providing mentorship in these occupations and careers with individuals, both men and women, who can answer questions, guide, advise is so important. Girls Inc. does this, as well as Big Brothers, Big Sisters programs and the other resources I mentioned. These mentors oftentimes make that world come alive for girls and provide needed encouragement along a path that is oftentimes scary and unknown because they have no previous familiarity with it. Mentors can talk about what worked for them and suggest steps, suggest further connections, go on visits to other workplaces to see what happens in the real world, and talk about decisions they would make if they were in various situations. Having someone to bounce ideas off of that is a trusted resource is just so valuable. Mentorships often turn into valued lifelong relationships that add richness to both mentor and mentees' worlds. It's great encouragement to tell a young girl, you can be anything, you can do anything, but take the next step. Let her explore interests, then give a menu of possible options and a roadmap of how to accomplish that goal. Put those people engaged in the work near them so they can see a living, working example and determine if it's the right avenue for them. Broadening our thinking from the traditional occupations achieved through a college degree to include vocational careers, which may be an ideal choice for many, and engaging those who we know who are doing this work to speak at schools, groups, activities, and other places and events where young girls and women are, makes it real to them. Another thing we need to do is talk about financial independence. This oftentimes has not been discussed openly, and we need to change this stigma. It is slowly changing. There are more pay equity laws in place and more pay transparency than ever before. Providing the salary range for the work done in these occupations helps girls and young women chart a better future for themselves that meets their needs. I've always been guided by feeling proud of the work I do, more so than monetary rewards, but perhaps I would have made different choices if this knowledge had been more readily accessible to me in the past. Having this salary knowledge can help in the assessment process and allow girls and women to focus on in-demand fields that many times go overlooked. Another related consideration that cannot be overlooked is that we are in the midst of what some call a silver tsunami, where more workers are retiring and needed replacements are hard to come by. I hear over and over from human resource and business professionals that they're having a difficult time recruiting people with the skills they need. Overall, there are less workers available, so anyone with the right training and enthusiasm to put them to use truly has leverage and many more opportunities to pick from. This drives salaries higher for those key roles that are out there, which are so important for business growth. That allows for a path out of poverty for many women and self-sustainability. So what resources are out there for all of this? Well, there are resources like the website onetonline.org that provides the Bureau of Labor Statistics salary and informational data on all kinds of occupations. There's an interest profiler tool within that resource that can be used to do career exploration. The salary data in that site gets updated yearly, and the job descriptions include things like key technical skills and education level, with related occupations coming up as suggestions also. Having a basis for comparison between job choices is so valuable when determining what career to pursue. I know that many financial institutions in the US hold financial literacy activities for many. and will bring these on site at schools and other programs to help address daily life activities like budgeting, savings, investing basics, and more. I've taken part in these activities in the past, and it's a win for all involved. These are such great programs to expose young girls to where they can role play in activities that help prepare them for adulthood. After participating in something like this, thinking through the pros and cons of each job and career choice with knowledge of the actual salary ranges results in decisions and conclusions that are even more solid for them. Another way that institutions can assist is we need to provide time in schools and other programs, maybe even partner with local chambers of commerce to expose girls to these resources and activities that will help them determine what they want their lives to be like, not just their working life. Schools can provide more than just how to learn knowledge and take tests. I don't want to leave out another population that can benefit as well from these focuses. Adult learner programs, ABE and ESOL programs oftentimes have some space in their grants that allow for this type of exposure, and providing these resources can be life-changing for women who were never exposed to them before. I've seen this firsthand, and it's wonderful seeing these women succeed. This is one of the many ways we can make strides to advancing and empowering women at a local level. The career and job choices that girls and young women make are so critical in providing a pathway out of poverty and a different way of living when many may not actually see much diversity in this area around their lives. They say what you do is oftentimes what you know and are surrounded by, and this is so true. Exposure to the new emerging fields, as well as occupations that are in high need and demand, is an opportunity that is a shame for anyone to miss out on. These opportunities provide pathways out of poverty, and we must be sure our girls and young women take advantage of them. Thank you for your time today, and I know if we use even a small amount of what we've heard over the course of this event, we can all make a greater difference in the lives of girls and women to benefit all of us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darlene Morse, for your powerful insights. Next on the schedule, we also have another special guest. We'll also like to hear from Ms. Yinjun Zhang. She is the director of the China Youth AIDS Prevention Education Project Office, and she serves as the founder and the chairman of the Change Year Education Foundation. So, Ms. Zhang, the floor is yours. She'll be joining through the video.
Honorable Chairperson of the conference, distinguished delegates, I'm Zhang Yinjun, the President of Beijing Challenger Education Foundation, and it is an honor to address you today on the imperative topic of accelerating gender equality and empowering women. At this esteemed gathering of the Convention on the Status of Women. Since the establishment of the United Nations in 1945, nations worldwide have made significant strides in entering gender equality in their constitution and working towards its realization. The United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, UN Women, has been at the forefront of advocating for women's empowerment, particularly in the realm of economic empowerment. While commendable progress has been made, it is evident that disparities persist across different countries and regions, with some areas experiencing stagnation or even regression in gender equality efforts. These divergence hinders global development and pose a challenge to achieving the Millennium Year goals within the stipulated time frame. To propel tangible advancements in gender equality and women's empowerment, the Beijing Challenger Education Foundation and my leadership has embarked on a novel strategy centered around maternal love education. This innovative approach aims to elevate the dignity, social standing, and powerful role of mothers, empowering them with tangible rights to activate the journey toward gender equality and the harmonious balance of yin and yang. The concept of yin and yang, rooted in Chinese philosophy symbolize the balance between nature and humanity. Any imbalance, such as in gender dynamics, disrupts the natural and common order. A different situation that the world currently faces. May dominance makes worse the globe yin and yang imbalance, perpetuating gender equality and impeding eradication. The escalating specter of nuclear warfare and heightened military tensions underscore the vulnerability of marginalized groups, particularly women and children, who are often left grappling with overwhelming helplessness. In this critical juncture, the advocacy of maternal love emerges as a potent, selfless, and impartial force capable of fostering compassion and unity. Maternal love stands as a beacon of hope to salvage humanity and our planet, offering a transformative path, dissolve hostility, dispel the shadow of conflict, and infuse warmth into a world plagued by strife. In 2016, the inaugural Nissan World Women's Forum convened in Qufu, China, marking a pivotal moment in our pursuit of gender equality. As the executive chairman of the forum, my foundation spearheaded the maternal love education program, which has since yielded significant success in empowering women, particularly mothers, across urban and rural landscapes in China. Building on this momentum, the tiny stories of mothers charitable project announced early this year mobilize society to champion the issue of maternal love, recalibrate families' values, and amplify the profound impact of mothers within families and society at large. Our experience have underscored that the maternal love education is a tangible and effective avenue to empower women. To this end, we advocate for the establishment of the groundbreaking maternal love education initiative, comprising maternal love universities at the philosophical level, maternal love academies at the technical level, and maternal love committees at the grassroots level. Mothers transcend mere biological ties to embody a beacon of moral goodness and societal esteem, rooted not only within the confines of the family, but also in the broad social fabric. By nurturing responsible and compassionate mothers, we aspire to cultivate generation of exemplary maternal figures akin to the revered Virgin Mary and confused mother Yan Zhenzai. Our vision is to establish the maternal love university in Hangzhou, China. Hangzhou is the birthplace of the ancient He culture and is also one of the most beautiful international cities in China. The Fuchong River in Hangzhou is one of the most beautiful natural landscapes in China. We hope that the future maternal love university will be the future origin of the fascinating ancient Chinese painting. Traveling in the Fuchong Mountains, we hope that one day women from all over the world will come to the Hangzhou Maternal Love University to attend their understanding of maternal love, receive maternal love education, and become the finest mothers of humanity. China supports maternal love education and the establishment of maternal love universities, which is an embodiment of the spirit of the Charter of the United Nations and represents concrete actions to achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women. In advocating for the acceleration of gender equality and the empowerment of women, we champion maternal love education as a transformative catalyst. As the Chinese proverb goes, a journey of the sovereign's meaner begin with a single step. So the narrative matters. The propagation of maternal now education and the elevation of the maternal rules and dignity will spell a world where every woman is empowered to embrace her innate potential. Let us unite in solidarity and action to champion gender equality and women's empowerment, starting with the transformative power of maternal now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chang, for your insights and for the work you've been doing through your platform over the years.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We gathered today to address an issue that touches the core of our societies, cultural capital, also known as the educational disparities, rooted in parental education backgrounds. These disparities are not just about gaps in academic performance, they are about opportunity lost, potential untapped, and future compromised. The path to educational equity begins with acknowledging these challenges and empowering the next generation to confront them. Let's understand the challenge: educational disparities in cultural capital. Educational disparities arising from parental education levels are deeply intertwined with the concept of cultural capital, a term introduced by sociologist Pierre Bourdieu. Cultural capital refers to the non-economic social assets, such as knowledge, skills, education, and social networks, that significantly influence a person's ability to succeed academically and socially. When parents have higher education levels, they often pass down this cultural capital to their children, providing them with a significant advantage in navigating the educational system. However, for many first-generation college students, those whose parents did not attend or complete college, this cultural capital is lacking. The consequences are profound. These students often face a lack of access to critical resources, limited academic guidance, and the absence of social networks that are essential for navigating the complexities of higher education. This gap in cultural capital perpetuates cycles of disadvantage, affecting not just academic outcomes, but long-term opportunities for social mobility and economic stability. Below are a few aspects of educational disparities. First, access to resources. Parents with higher education levels can provide resources such as books, tutors, educational programs, and technology that are vital for academic success. In contrast, parents with lower education levels often lack the means of knowledge to support their children's educational needs. Second, knowledge and support. Well-educated parents are familiar with the educational system. They know how to help their children with schoolwork, how to apply for college, and how to navigate academic challenges. Less educated parents, however, may struggle to provide similar guidance, leaving their children at a disadvantage. Third, cultural and social capital. Families with higher levels of education often emphasize the importance of academic success, instilling values, behaviors, and expectations that support learning. In contrast, families with lower education level may focus on immediate work-related skills or survival, rather than long-term educational attainments. Fourth, impact on children's educational attainments. These disparities directly impact educational outcomes, often resulting in lower college attendance and completion rates among first-generation students. This perpetuates cycles of inequality, limiting opportunities for these students to break out of the social-economic conditions into which they were born. Let's discuss this in a global context. The struggles of first-generation college students around the world. First-generation college students face common challenges, though the specifics can vary by region. In developed countries like the United States, the UK, and Australia, first-generation students often struggle with social integration, financial barriers, and a lack of academic preparedness. In developing countries, These challenges are even more severe, compounded by socioeconomic disparities, limited access to quality education, and cultural expectations that often prioritize short-term economic gain over long-term educational goals. For example, in North America, students from families with higher cultural capital are 50% more likely to attend college compared to their peers from less educated backgrounds. In China, disparities between urban and rural areas mean that students from cities, where parents have received higher levels of education, are far more likely to achieve academically than their rural counterparts. In sub-Saharan Africa, the primary challenge is access to education itself, where only 30% of students from families with lower cultural capital complete secondary education. The impact of these disparities extend beyond academic outcomes. Social mobility is stifled, mental health issues are prevalent, and academic and economic opportunities are limited. For many first-generation students, the lack of cultural capital translates into a lack of confidence, support, and resources, creating barriers that are often insurmountable. I would like to highlight the role of youth in addressing educational disparities. The key to overcoming these challenges lies within our youth. Young people are not only the most affected by educational disparities, but they are also uniquely positioned to drive a change. By harnessing their creativity, technological skills, and passion for social justice, youth can play a transformative role in bridging the cultural capital gap and advancing educational equity. Here are some examples for the youth-led initiatives, empowering first-generation students. I have personally founded and led the Motion Educational Club in school. By recruiting 47 members, I collaborate with respected educators from universities and held seminars such as ADHD teaching strategy discussions. Also offer free courses to children of migrant workers and encourage others to participate in social justice act as well. As the president and chief operating officer of ECFA online educational program, a students-run platform promoting education equity worldwide, I recruited and mentored dozens of employees and 11 global award-winning students to share competition knowledge. Besides, I also recorded and updated courses online for free. Here are some strategic recommendations for bridging the cultural capital gap. First, peer-led support networks. Peer support is a powerful tool in addressing feelings of isolation and academic insecurity among first-generation students. Youth-led support groups can provide mentorship, share experiences, and create a sense of community. By fostering connections among students who face similar challenges, these networks can help build the social capital that first-generation students often lack. Second, technology-driven solution. In our digital age, technology offers endless possibilities for supporting first-generation students. Youth can develop online platforms, virtual mentorship program, and initiative guides that provide practical advice on managing college life. These resources can democratize access to information, often making it available to all, regardless of their background. Third, cultural competency training. Educational institutions must become more inclusive and supportive of first-generation students. Youth can advocate for and participate in developing cultural competency training programs for educators and administrators. Such training will address bias, foster inclusive environments, and ensure that first-generation students receive the respect and support they deserve. Fourth, youth-led advocacy and policy change. Youth activism has the power to influence policy at all levels. Young leaders can advocate for inclusive admission policies, increase fundings for support service and the creation of resources center specifically designed for first-generation students. By raising their voices, youth can drive legislative change that prioritize educational equity. While youth-led initiatives are crucial, addressing the root causes of educational disparities requires a broader approach. One key strategy is to engage and educate the parents of first-generation college students. Parents' education program can equip parents with tools they need to better support their children's academic and professional development. By providing workshops, online resources, and community discussions, we can help parents understand the educational landscape and empower them to actively participate in their children's education. Countries like China have pioneered parents' education programs that offer lectures, group discussions, and web-based classes tailored to the needs of parents. These initiatives have proven effective in closing the cultural capital gap. The similar models can be adapted and implemented globally. Ladies and gentlemen, the disparities rooted in parental education are not just challenges. They are opportunities for us to make meaningful change. By empowering youth and take the lead, we can bridge the cultural capital gap and create a more equitable educational landscape. The task ahead is daunting, but the potential impact is transformative. Let us commit to support our youth, investing in their ideas and amplifying their voices. Together, we can ensure that every student, regardless of their background, has the chance to succeed in higher education and beyond. The journey towards educational equity is shared responsibility, and today we take a step closer to making it a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your insights. So next on the schedule, Ziv Luo will take the floor to share with us his point of view on the topic. So a bit of a background about him. Liang Zhao Ziv is a freshman at Brandeis University in the US. From a young age, Ziv has been raised by his mother while his father was busy with work, and he observes and experiences the imbalance of power in his family, and believing that females and all mankind should live freely as they want. He tries to combat inequality and raise awareness around the globe. So Liang Zhao, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm honored to stand before you today at this UN Women's Conference. I want to share with you my personal journey and insights on combating inequality and raising awareness for gender equality around the globe. In many developed and developing nations, we have made a lot of progress in terms of laws and regulation that promotes gender equality. However, misogyny still exists in more subtle forms as stereotypes that dictate how women should behave and should be treated. These stereotypes perpetuate the idea that women should stay home and be seen as mere objects of conquest. Luckily, such overt stereotypes has become a social taboo, but that does not mean they cease to exist. They're constantly being exchanged in forms of joke or as a main conversation that excludes any female participants. I would like to provide some personal experience and information, but please keep in mind they're also human, and it is never my wish to represent them as symbols or problems of our society, for they are my parents who I love and respect, and I would like to ask you all to do the same. So my father came from a rural area, and my grandparents almost sold everything to pay the tuition. But my mother, though not wealthy, was more of a city girl. Hence my grandfather or her father did not approve of their marriage. From a young age, my mother has often been ridiculed and looked down upon for being a woman. She found the responsibility to prove her own self-worth and to show that women can be as good as men. So she endured 3 tormented years of high school and was one of the few individuals in her small town who actually went to college and pursuing higher education. Hence, adapting to the similar spirit, instead of obeying to her father, the patriarchal force, she makes her own decision for her own marriage. So hence she escapes from her home and eventually married for love, which is my father. It seems like my mother has indeed made the right decision. where my father has eventually become a successful businessman, able to support our family from a small town to a vastly different country. And me, a child from a small town, is able to speak towards people around the globe. However, the unique quality of my mother seems to fade away as society pushes women to accept the role of family centered, since my father assumes his responsibility for the family as the sole protector. During the college application season, my father gathered my brother and I to a meeting to discuss our future and pass down some of his experiences. It was a sign of approval and maturity, where my father now conceives us as adults instead of teenagers and believes that it's time to show and teach us how to be a man. Hence, he opened up to us, sharing information about our family both financially and asked us of our future career paths and dreams. However, in such an important meeting that symbolizes maturity, my mother, who has been taking care of my brother and me ever since we were born, was not part of this conversation. My father specifically said that it's a man conversation with a smile to attenuate the damage and the separation the words has contained. And then he shuts the door. It is not simply a sign of contempt or toxic masculinity. Sure, there was arrogance, where he believed that women fail to understand the important jobs of men and will fail to provide any real constructive advice for my brother and me other than historical emotions. But more importantly, he wants to conceal the ugly nitty-gritties of our family away from her so that she can be happy. Where my father believes that a man should carry all the responsibility, shield all the ugliness away from the family, and that's exactly what he did. My father chose to carry all the problems alone because he believed it is the right way, the supposed way, and the man way to do so. When we speak of feminism, we often think of suffering of women and assume that man is the influencer and the problem to be solved, while woman is the innocent victim. We often fail to realize the real problem is our society, where we are both restricted under the societal norms and expectations of that our personal self has often been ignored, where man hides his emotions to better acclimate the image of men, and women are rendered as family-centered mom who lacks any power or authority. However, difference still exists. Though both living under an oppressing world, the stereotypical image of man encourages us to go out and explore, to make a living on our own, hence achieving an illusion of freedom, and many are condemned towards it. They fail to realize what freedom truly represents and that they're not limited to one single stereotypical image. As we continue our journey towards gender equality, it is crucial to recognize the interconnectedness of all individuals in society. Gender equality is not just a women's issue, it is a human rights issue that affects everyone. Men and women both have a role to play in dismantling harmful gender norms and stereotypes. I believe the key is through selfhood. There is a desire for freedom in all of us, where we want to break free of such societal control and simply want to be ourselves. It is simply universal, and I have identified some issues with solution. First of all, economic disparity between men and women still exists, and Ms. Darlene Morris and Ms. Susan Kendall has mentioned it in their speech about how salary and ways for women to provide for themselves. But when one fails to provide for the family, one is forced to adopt the role of housewife or as family-centered. We need to provide support for women around the globe. A network should be created where men and women can help each other or provide opportunity for young women entering the workforces so that it is not necessary for women to marry and rely on men financially. Furthermore, I believe that money has been abstracted into a morbid social force that represents power and respect, where one's own worth is often dictated by the wages one is able to make. And sadly, such value even holds true inside a family. I believe that money is merely an object of exchange that should not represent any value or social hierarchy, especially inside a family. Education is also important, where many have accepted the stereotypical representation of men and women at a young age, and as kids, they're unable to identify what's real. They lack a correct representation of what the world should be. Hence, it becomes our job to display how the society should move forward. Hence, we should educate men and boys about ideas of equality, masculinity, and encourage them to embrace themselves and challenge what is wrong. We should try to erase the social stereotypes and representation of men and women at a young age and remove such stereotypes from our society completely. In conclusion, achieving gender equality requires a collective effort from all individuals, regardless of the gender. By challenging harmful gender norms, promoting intersectional approaches to equality, empowering women economically, and advocating for women's leadership, we can create a more just and equitable world for all. Let us continue to work together towards a future where everyone has the freedom and opportunity to thrive, regardless of their gender. And thank you for your commitment to this important cause.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zuflo. Very also powerful insights drawing from your personal or real life experience. So thank you very much for that. We have our last speaker. I mean, that's the 8th speaker, and that will be Miss Evelyn Zhang. She's a high school junior at Shanghai High School International Division in China. As the captain of her school soccer team, she has observed and experienced firsthand the gender disparities that exist in sports and the detrimental effects they bring when institutionalized by entities like educational system. Evelyn's commitment to addressing disparities extends beyond the soccer field. She's deeply invested in understanding and tackling the educational disparities that hinders girls' empowerment, particularly in rural China, and is a firm believer that it is imperative for those with privilege, especially girls like herself, to use their platforms to speak up for those whose voices often go unheard. So, Evelyn, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, esteemed delegates, fellow advocates, and distinguished guests. My name is Evelyn Zhang, and I stand before you today not just as a student, but as a young woman deeply invested in the fight for gender equality, particularly in the realm of education and sports. As a captain of my school soccer team, I've witnessed firsthand the disparities that exist in sports and the detrimental effects they bring when institutionalized by entities like the educational system. Today, I would like to share my experiences, shed some light on the pressing issue of educational disparities for girls in developed and developing nations alike, and propose actionable solutions to address these challenges. Imagine being a young girl passionate about sports, eager to lead your team to victory, only to face unequal funding and support from your school. This has been my reality. As a captain of our school soccer team, I've seen how resources and opportunities are disproportionately allocated, favoring boys' teams over girls. The lack of investment in girls' sports not only perpetuates gendered stereotypes, but also deprives young girls of their chance to develop leadership skills and confidence on the field. But the disparities extend beyond the soccer field. In well-developed cities like Shanghai, there remains a concerning and ironic lack of awareness about the broader issue of educational inequalities for girls in China. While we may enjoy access to quality education, many girls in rural areas face significant barriers, such as limited access to schools, early marriage, and cultural biases that perpetuate the notion that girls should prioritize household duties over education. Allow me to share a more personal story that has deeply impacted my understanding of the gender disparities in education. As a high school junior in Shanghai, I've had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the experiences of girls from impoverished areas who come to work in urban centers to support their families. These girls, often from rural or economically disadvantaged backgrounds, face immense challenges in accessing education beyond the primary level. I vividly recall encountering these young women in various roles, from cleaning staff in our school to waitresses in local restaurants. Through conversations with them, I learned that many had sacrificed their own educational aspirations to ensure that their male siblings could pursue secondary and tertiary education. It was a stark reminder to me of the entrenched gender norms and economic inequalities that perpetuate the cycle of poverty and limit opportunities for girls. The statistics also point to a sobering picture. In poverty-striking areas of China, the proportion of girls entering schools remains disproportionately low. While enrollment rates may appear similar to those in more affluent regions, completion rates tell a completely different story. In these contexts, globally, only 63% of female primary school students complete their primary education, compared to 67% of their male counterparts. The gap widens at the secondary level, where only 36% of girls complete lower secondary school, compared to 44% of boys. Fragility, conflict, and violence exacerbate these disparities, with girls in affected countries being 2.5 times more likely to be out of school than boys. The learning crisis further compounds the challenges these girls face. Learning poverty, which measures the share of children unable to read proficiently under the age of 10, remains alarmingly high, particularly in low-income countries where it averages about 93% for both boys and girls. In these areas where economic hardships often force families to prioritize the education of male children, girls are left behind, denied the opportunity to pursue higher education and break the cycle of poverty. This reality underscores the urgent need for targeted interventions to address the root causes of gender disparities in education. We cannot afford to overlook the potential of these young women, who possess the talent, ambition, and resilience to contribute meaningfully to society if given the chance. Their stories compel us to reevaluate our priorities and to advocate for policies that prioritize girls' empowerment and equal access to education. As a student, my observations have prompted me to consider solutions that resonate most closely with the experience of youths, questioning how we can accelerate progress on this issue across all cities, whether affluent or poverty-stricken. Firstly, we must advocate against the gender disparities in educational funding. By addressing funding gaps and advocating for equitable investment in girls' education, we can empower girls to reach their full potential and accelerate progress towards gender equality. This includes advocating for increased government investment in schools serving marginalized communities, particularly in rural areas where girls face significant barriers to accessing quality education, as well as the redistribution of school board funding across programs. Additionally, we should push for transparency and accountability mechanisms to monitor and address any discrepancies in funding allocation. On the level of the state, legislative reforms are essential to dismantle legal barriers that impede girls' access to education. This may include amendments to existing laws to prohibit discriminatory practices, such as early marriage and gender-based violence, which disproportionately affect girls' educational opportunities. Furthermore, legal reforms should aim to eliminate discriminatory policies that hinder girls' access to urban universities and high-quality education. Secondly, we need to dismantle and raise awareness to combat systematic barriers to girls' education. This requires targeted policies and interventions to address cultural norms, economic constraints, and discriminatory practices that hinder girls' access to education. As students, we should be encouraged to initiate research fundraising events, donation drives for school supplies and textbooks, and awareness-raising campaigns on social media platforms. As students in cities, it is our sole responsibility to raise our voices and speak out against the injustices that deny girls equal access to education. We cannot allow a pervasive lack of empathy within society to persist. For every girl denied an education is a potential future lost, a dream deferred, and a human spirit stifled. Engaging communities and raising awareness about the importance of girls' education is vital to fostering support for gender equality initiatives. This may also involve launching public awareness campaigns to challenge harmful gender norms and stereotypes, conducting community outreach programs to educate parents and community leaders about the benefits of educating girls, and involving local stakeholders in the design and implementation of educational policies to ensure that they're culturally sensitive and responsive to community needs. Investing in capacity building and training programs for teachers, school administrators, and policymakers is also essential to create an enabling environment for girls' education. This may include providing professional development opportunities to equip teachers with gender-sensitive teaching methodologies, training school administrators on best practices for promoting gender equality within schools, and offering workshops and seminars for policymakers to enhance their understanding of the systematic barriers facing girls in education and develop targeted policy solutions. Furthermore, building initiative and awareness within educational institutions is crucial. Leadership opportunities for girls in education must be promoted to ensure that girls have equal opportunities to take on leadership roles and become agents of change within their schools and communities. In addition to encouraging participation in student-led initiatives, leadership workshops, and clubs to empower females and recognize female struggles, schools can ensure that girls have equal opportunities to participate in decision-making processes that affect their education and well-being. This can involve seeking input from girls in school policies, curriculum development, and extracurricular activities, and actively involving them in discussions and planning sessions. It is crucial and often overlooked to instill the notion that as girls and as women, we shouldn't be subjected to feel the need to say no to ourselves in decision-making processes before someone else does. Implementing comprehensive support programs is crucial to address the multifaceted barriers faced by girls in accessing education. These programs should encompass initiatives such as providing scholarships and financial assistance to girls from low-income families, establishing safe transportation networks to ensure that they can travel to and from school safely, and implementing gender-responsive curriculum reforms to promote inclusivity and address stereotypes in educational materials. As we discuss policy solutions to tackle gender disparities in education, let us not forget the voices of those who have been silenced by systematic inequalities. As students, as advocates, and as leaders, it is incumbent upon us to raise our voices and speak out against injustices that deny girls equal access to education. Let us commit ourselves to building a future where every girl, regardless of her background, has the opportunity to fulfill her potential and contribute to a more just and equitable society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very rich series of sharings, and I personally learned a lot. And we are moving to the Q&A session. So far, we have 4 questions. One for Darlene, one for Suzanne, one for Ms. Zhang Yingjin, and apparently one for the moderator. That's very interesting. Okay, so I would like to start with Darlene. So I will literally quote the questions, okay? So I really like you sharing your great ideas and work you have done for preparing careers for women and girls. Can you share what is the biggest challenge you see? Yeah, and for the Chinese, should you translate or should I do? Okay, go ahead.
I will translate.
I see the biggest challenge is that most exposure to career and job choices assumes traditional options, and that there's really not enough time allocated in schools for exploring other choices. And do you want to, yeah?
Yes. So I think 这个我现在来做的这个翻译哈，他认为刚才的问题就是作为非常感谢他的分享，对于帮助女性跟女孩这个对未来职业做好准备的分享，他刚才分享了这个部分的内容。问题是想问一下，他目前看到最大的挑战是什么？那他的回答是我认为最大的挑战实际上是。目前为止，大多数对职业跟工作的选择的这个都是比较传统的选项，在学校里呢，除了课业之外，其实很少有机会去来探索他对职业有什么样的选择。
I think that time in schools is focused on other things and not exploring the width and breadth of options that are available, and what youth may most benefit from is an issue. Having another resource that can help with this exposure, like the Girls Inc. programs I mentioned, or a mentor who can assist in exposing youth to options like this is not really a regular happening. So a lot of folks miss out on this.
就是现在目前包括在美国也一样，就是在学校里大部分的时间都是集中在学业跟其他的事情上面作为学生，其实他没有太多的时间跟机会去探索他在职业方面的选择这其实对青少年来说，其实也是非常重要的一个事情那么还有就是他认为有一些可以利用一些其他的资源，可以帮助来这个孩子的一个选择对职业的选择哈，比如说他刚才在演讲当中提到的这个女孩Girls Inc. 是女孩 公益项目，或者是其他有一些其他的机会，可以帮助这个年轻人哈，可以接触到一些导师，那么现在目前这种机会不是太多，所以很多人都没有这种机会去能够有这个导师，包括有这些在学校里的机会去探索自己的职业生涯的或者更早的去介入到他职业生涯的这个规划当中。
The last point I think is that it's important, I think Evelyn mentioned too, is that youth who grow up in families that don't have the monetary resources don't even think that they can proceed in programs or schools because of the costs that are involved. So I think that's a big obstacle.
最后一点就是在成长的过程当中，也看到了，如果没有这个资金、这个金钱的这个支持哈，作为这个富裕家庭跟非富裕家庭的青少年他们可能就会缺少一些机会去参加一些这个校内校外的活动。他刚才也提到了这个Evelyn 张天悦在演讲当中也提到了这个事情，所以他个人认为这可能是其中一个也比较大的障碍。Thank you 谢谢。
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mandu, sorry, the question is for all. It's not for you. I think Miss Typo is for Oliver Singh.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
And okay, then it's fine. I could also answer that anyway. The second question goes to Miss Susan. So what is your view regarding how the developed countries can contribute to solve gender inequality for developing countries?
Right, thanks. Great question. I think that by constantly monitoring and questioning themselves and addressing gender, from my experience, gender is something that often gets left out or picked up at the end as a sort of an addition. So really trying to mainstream gender and thinking about moving from being responsive to transformative, whether it's to do with system strengthening or programs for women and girls empowerment or government policy making. Just thinking about really readdressing gender equalities that will have like a long-lasting effect and challenge harmful gender norms.
Okay. 对于他来说，就是第一个很重要的就是要有一个监测系统，能够看到这个发展中国家它的这个性别不平等存在于哪一些部分。另外一个挑战，他认为刚才忘记了，就是他们所问的问题就是，您对于发达国家如何可以帮助发展中国家解决性别这个不平等的现象，就是由发达国家来帮助发展中国家。他的回答也就是第一个是要有这个监测系统，能够监测到目前这个发展中国家性别不平等的现象存在于哪里。第二点，他有提到就是希望在联合国包括全球的把这个性别优先作为一个优先的事项来关注，而不是作为一个比较靠后的方面来关注。第三个，他认为就是要有一些从根本上的一些这个系统方面的来支持。一个就是把整个性别不平等，包括性别平等的这个整个体系把它增强做好。第二个还是需要政府方面的这个支持，以及民间的各方面的这个努力的去把这个事情做好。谢谢 ，Thank you, Susan. Do you have a more answer?
Do you have other contribution, or do you want to elaborate further, Miss Susan, or is okay?
It's
okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Then we have a question for Miss Zhang Yinjun. So, great missions and projects. Can you explain a little more regarding Maternal Love University and telling stories of mothers?
这个问题是给我们的理事长张银俊女士。对于亲爱的发心以及目前所取得的成就我们感到非常的骄傲。我们想问理事长，对于母爱书院和寻找母亲的故事走向世界有什么想法？
好，谢谢大家，刚才各位嘉宾的发言都特别好哈。亲爱做了这么久以后，我们现在跟亲爱工程就是亲爱小屋，我们在学校有1300多所学校的亲爱小屋。 那么配套亲爱小屋的地方呢，我们就给它铺设母爱书院。母爱书院是在社区里面，主要是为女性、为母亲提供这种各种赋能的教育，比如说亲子关系，还有母亲的素养的提升，以及经济权、文化教育这一切的给女性提供的服务。所以我们在社区里面叫母爱书院。那母爱书院里面，一个很重要的项目就是我们今年开展起来的，叫寻找母亲的故事。寻找母亲的故事呢，我们现在是在中国在开展，我们未来还想到各个国家去开展这样的寻找母亲的故事。它是母爱书院里面一个很重要的一个公益项目，所以也希望呢，跟各位嘉宾。然后我们可以在不同的地域、不同的国家去开展这样寻找母亲的故事。好，谢谢。
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, thank you for everyone. Thank you for the guest speaker today and all the people that attended this conference. Changier has right now we have 1,300 over Changier hut is in our community in all our schools. So in our community, we are providing education to parents, especially to mother. We also providing the venue for parents and children. They are able to play together and learn together. They also providing some economic education as well. So this year we are one of our initiatives is looking for mother's story. So this is basically asking mother to tell their success story when they as a mother, and how the education is going to help the mother to be a better mother, and also helping them being a parenting skill. So we are looking forward to have a partnership in worldwide. We are to promote this project and to looking for a mother's story. And then if anyone is interested, and you can contact our Changier Education Foundation, and we will work together to bring all this great mother story to the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one last question. I think I thought it was meant to me, but for me, but then yeah, Oliver's in.
I think after Olive
as a male, why?
After Olive sing, we would love to hear your perspective as well. And you can speak in both English and Chinese.
Well, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, as a male, why this topic, gender equality for women and girls, matter to you, Oliver Sin?
问题是，您作为男性，为什么女性性别平等对你来说这么重要？你为什么在意这个话题？为什么这个话题对你来说意味着什么？
Yeah, I'll be answering this in English. So this is a fantastic question. I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about why and how gender equality, matters to me, especially since I'm someone who benefits from it every day. At its core, to me at least, gender equality is a human issue, not a gender issue. Men as fathers, as brothers, as sons, and as partners have and should have a vested interest in the well-being of the women and girls in their lives. I have two sisters and a mother, and it would break my heart if my sisters or my mother weren't able to reach their full potential just because they were born a different gender than I am. The stories of empowerment, learning, and progress that I shared resonated with me personally because I thought they reflect shared human values, the desire for freedom, the desire to learn, the opportunity to live fulfilling lives, in short, the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
非常感谢这个问题呢。对于我来说，作为男性，我每天都在考虑这个问题。我认为在这个问题的核心，其实性别平等是一个人类的问题，而不是仅仅是一个性别的问题。作为男性，作为父亲、兄弟， 儿子和伴侣。男性对他们生活中的女性跟还有他们这个女孩的幸福，其实有着切身的利益。比如对于我来说，我有2个姐妹和我的母亲。如果他们因为与我有不同的性别而剥夺了实现他们全部潜力的这个权利的话，这个事情会让他感到心碎。我分享的父权学习跟进步的故事也会让他产生共鸣，因为这样反映了人类其实我们在共享着自己的价值观，我们对自由、知识已经过上这个自己充实的、美满的生活的渴望。换句话说呢，是对这个生命、自由和我们追求幸福的权利。
Yeah, and on a more practical note, gender equality, including education for women and girls, contributes significantly to economic growth. If you look at the numbers, countries with higher rates of educated women have higher average wages, to have higher GDPs, quality of life is better when you compare them with countries with lower rates of educated women. The education of women and girls leads to more informed, more engaged, more innovative, just in general, a better society. And I think that the diversity of perspectives that comes from ensuring that half your population is educated and empowered enriches cultural, political, social, intellectual discourse. And I think it leads to more robust, more progressive, and just more well-rounded communities. And men like me, as part of these communities, have nothing to lose but everything to gain from the varied perspectives and contributions of women.
Thank you. 从另外一个更实际的层面上来说呢，包括为这个妇女和女孩提供这个教育的性别平等，其实对这个他们对这个经济增长是有显著的贡献的。从一般理论上来说，受过教育的女性比较高的国家，与受过教育的女性比例比较低的国家相比，这些受过教育比较高的他们会拥有更高的平均工资跟更高的这个国内生产总值。妇女和女孩的这个教育呢，也导致了也能够让我们有一个更加知情、参与跟创新的社会。确保一半以上的人口能够接受这个教育跟父权产生的各种观点包括这种父权的多样性，也能够丰富我们的文化、政治跟社会，也能够促进我们更加这个国家的繁荣，还有这个社区的更加进步。像我这样的男性作为这个社区的一部分，我支持女性各种观点，也支持为女性平权做出贡献。我只有收获，我没有任何的失去。我做的越多，对这个社会对于我来说是收益更多的。谢谢。Thank you. So now the questions go to our MC.
Okay, well, on a very brief note, because we're already behind the schedule, I think Oliver said it all. But for me, the only thing that I want to add is that, while everyone benefits from gender equality, but we also have to acknowledge that any negative impact will, when it comes to gender inequality, will also affect the whole society, not only women, but also men. And the better, I would say, results that we can have, we can have men and boys taking responsibilities on one side, we can have women empowerment on the other side. So it's the combination of that actually makes greater results. And by greater results, we have men, women, we have men, boys, we have women and girls as I would call it allies, right? Allies against discriminations and abuses of any kinds, because the discrimination directed to anyone is actually bad. So discrimination has no gender. So that's why I support Oliver when he mentioned that it is not a gender issue, it's a human rights actually. So I think it's a human rights, and saying that it's a human rights, it implies that men, boys, women, and girls of all classes, of all races, no matter where you are or where you're coming from, participate as equals and have equal values. So that's actually why I think men should join actually this kind of discourse.
Do you want to use Chinese to very briefly inform our
Well, I will try, even though my Mandarin is already
Okay, so I
fading
will
away.
translate. Thank you. I will translate.
Okay.
作为一个男性，同样的问题，作为男性，为什么这个性别平等对他来说意味着什么？为什么他在意这个话题？他的回答总结一下，最主要的是他认为这个性别平等的问题其实不是性别的问题，而是一个人权的问题。第二个，他呼吁一个这个观点就是其实男性跟女性我们各自有自己的职能，男性这应该是一个联盟，是男性与女性的联盟，是一种共创未来就不再是一个个别性别的一个分别，已经事先预定好的性别的分类了因为只有这样的话，男女同盟，我们才能够消除我们的这个歧视，才能够消除这个暴力让这个我们共同拥有一个美好跟幸福的社会跟世界跟未来。谢谢。
Exactly.
Thank you.
一个字不落。
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. So we're sorry for being behind the schedule, but this is what happens when the discussion is very, interesting and engaging. So we've had 8 magnificent, distinguished guests from different perspectives, youth representative from US, China, Canada. We also have a very professional speakers from international organizations, also with very wide experience, So thank you very much for making time to join us, discussing this meaningful issue. And we wish that the debate will continue because it is a sustainable or a continuing debate, and it's together that will actually see through to find better ways to solve these issues. As the last question mentioned, it is actually a human right, so it implies efforts from everyone: men, boys, women, and girls. So thank you again, and thank you for the organizers, and also thank you for the speakers. Thank you for our magnificent audience. Okay, thank you very much, and hopefully see you next year. So thank you very much.